Welcome to episode 006 of the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's November 1st, 2023. Your boy
Ravenheart, Rick for short.
and Taylor, we're here in the studio.
We are.
This fabulous studio. We just recently moved into a new studio. It's got all kinds of cool bonus
Fabulous
features.
studio in deep space in our abandoned beacon.
That's right. Yeah, we're just lost in space.
That's it.
Let's go into our usual first topic of what have we been playing, what have we been buying. I'll let you go first this week.
All right. So I haven't bought anything, and I've actually had quite the hectic week in my personal life. But what I have been playing, despite my efforts to get started on Honkai Star Rail,
Still hasn't happened?
I have it downloaded, but
that's what you said last week.
Yeah, I know. I don't always have access to every room in my house at all times, unfortunately. But I know. But I have been going back to a game that I played a while ago and trying to get one last trophy, and that game is Xeodrifter.
Okay.
On PS Vita.
I think this was made by Jules Washam.
Yeah,
and
I
from
think so.
Renegade Kid, which is now split off, and I think he's taken over control of the portion of the company named Atui.
Atui. That sounds right.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like a very, very low team game.
I mean, I played this a while ago on my Vita. I think it was a PlayStation Plus game, I want to say.
You're right. It was also one of the first limited run games for Vita.
Oh, was it?
It was.
Oh,
yeah.
you're playing the physical Vita copy.
I am. Yes.
Okay. I think I own it too.
Only play that way unless I'm forced to.
I played it when it was free from PlayStation Plus. So
Gotcha.
if I have the physical copy, which is sad that I don't know
Right.
if I have that or not, it's still sealed.
Of course. I unseal my games because I feel the games need to be played.
So even if you haven't played it, like you
I
buy
will keep
a game...
it sealed until I play
Oh,
it.
okay. I
But,
was gonna say
yeah.
at least be logical.
Of
About
course.
It. Yeah.
But anyways, Xeodrifter is this indie game, pixel art style, nice old school pixel art. Like
Looks really nice on the Vita.
it
The
does.
colors.
It really does. And it plays just like an old school Metroid game. Considerably shorter, but it's got all the usual power ups that you'd expect in a Metroid game. All the different beams and life tanks and missile expansions, etc.
Right.
It has 4 different planets that you can travel to at any point, which is nice. And yeah, so my first playthrough of this game years ago got every trophy except one, and that one trophy is finish the game in under an hour.
Oh,
Of course.
man.
And our recent episode where we talked about those kinds of trophies.
I really can't stand those trophies.
In the back of my mind, I was like Xeodrifter.
It is probably. I mean, thankfully, it's only an hour, so
Well,
like you're not wasting beat the game in under 10 hours.
if you think that this is going to take me an hour of my time, you're wrong.
No, I
have been resetting all week and stuff.
Okay, how close are you getting?
I'm about 40% of the way through the game. But if I take too long doing something, or I fall and take way too long getting back up, I will straight reset.
Okay, so you haven't made it to the end and been 3 minutes shy or something like that yet.
No. I only beat the whole game one time.
Okay.
And now that I know the game, although it was a long time ago,
right.
I'm trying to go back through and beat it within an hour. And this is so stupid. This trophy is just a silver trophy. It's not even something I need.
But you want that 100% completion.
The game doesn't even have a platinum. It's so unfortunate. But
that's back in the day. For some reason, it used to be that small games Sony wouldn't give platinums to.
Right.
And now they give a platinum to anything.
Right. But anyways, this one trophy, despite not having a platinum, has been haunting me for years. And when we talked about these kinds of trophies recently, this just came up, and I'm like, I have to go get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've been playing that all week.
Another game that did that is Miramasa Rebirth, which I would have tried to go for the platinum, but it has trophies that are finish the game in under 10 hours.
Right.
And for me, that's if I go for that trophy and I fail, I've just dumped 10 hours into the trash can.
It's a project, so you're gonna save and reset.
I guess.
Like, that's just how you're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Unless you're like some crazy speedrunner who's just a natural.
Well, I mean, even speedrunner, I mean, that's what they want to do, though. They want to play it. They want to be the master of that game.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
I don't necessarily want to be the master of that game.
That's not how I play. But yeah, I'm just trying to get this trophy because it's.
You're normally not one to be so swayed by a trophy. I'm surprised.
No, I'm not. But I don't know. I feel like, having just discussed this, I want to get one of these stupid trophies in my lifetime.
Sure. Yeah, don't think I've ever gotten a speedrun trophy, so
I think the trophy is literally titled speedrun. It couldn't be more on the nose about it.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so that's what I've been playing.
Okay.
What about you?
I have been continuing to play Final Fantasy 16. Don't have too much extra to add from what I talked about last week, where I was just kind of gushing about the game. But there was one particular moment that I came across last week after we had recorded as I continued to play the game. And I was just, my jaw was on the floor for 30 minutes straight as I did this incredible boss battle.
Yeah.
The likes of which I've never experienced before, from the music to just what I'm seeing on screen to the gameplay. It was just this like perfect cohesion of everything clicking for me too as a player. Like, I was like on fire. I was playing flawlessly. I was getting every dodge right, every parry in. Yeah. Like, it was just, oh my god. And then every time you think you've won the battle, it restarts. Phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, and it just gets like, the scale just keeps growing. The music keeps evolving. You know, like, this is a game where the music has been very like classic Final Fantasy. You know, you're hearing like choirs and, you know, something you'd hear in like a fantasy kind of game or movie. But this particular boss just kind of throws that away for a little bit, and you get like a hard like metal rock song. Right. And then it later transitions back into like bringing in the Latin choir into like mixing in with it, and it just goes off so hard.
So I mean, that's the kind of effort that I love Final Fantasy for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly. Something tells me they probably won't top that battle the rest of the game, because this is one of these key pivotal battles where you're fighting one of the other icons, which are based off the classic Final Fantasy summons.
Right.
And I've done another one of those battles. Do you mind if I say which icon it was?
That's fine.
It was Titan.
Okay, yeah. So Final Fantasy 15 gave me that same sentiment, same feeling with their battle with Titan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. And it was the biggest, craziest boss battle in the game, and it was not anywhere near the end of the game.
Okay, yeah, I think this battle was about maybe 60 or so% into the progress of the game.
Yeah.
Since then, I've done battle with, and I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, Bahamut. Okay, I almost was gonna say that right. And it was a really cool battle, and it was crazy and epic, but like, it just didn't match that high that I got from battling Titan.
None of the other ones will. It's a formula. Yeah. It's a repeating formula.
It just absolutely bonkers. And like, you know, you're not just fighting a monster, you're fighting like a human who embodies this monster. So you have this like emotional connection, and you've seen what this person has done and is capable of.
I think from a design development standpoint, what they try to do, what the Final Fantasy teams try to do with that, because this is, like I say, this is a repeating pattern in almost all of the modern games since like 7.
Okay.
Having this big, crazy, epic boss battle in the middle that none of the other boss battles even touch.
Yeah.
I think they do that for the purpose of developing demos and showcasing early in the game development cycle.
See, I had a theory about this too. I thought maybe the idea is maybe the player has been feeling like the game is a little samey. You
Hmm.
know, like they've been playing for 20 hours now, and you know they're mostly doing the same things. Why don't we throw them a real big curveball
Yeah,
and like really hook them back in?
it serves that purpose too,
Yeah, like it
definitely.
definitely. I mean, I was fully engaged with this game prior, but that. I mean, I stood up when it was finally over and was like, "Holy crap!" Like
Yeah,
this is like a crazy gamer moment, you know,
yeah.
where I was like, "Holy."
I felt that same thing in 15 with the
Yeah.
same
See, now
boss.
that makes me want to like stop playing 16, go play Final Fantasy 15 and get to that boss and like compare them side by
Yeah,
side.
it's.
I'm very
I'm gonna guess
curious.
it's probably a different, completely
Yeah, they're
different.
not going to do the same thing
Yeah.
2 games in a row or at
Um.
all ever.
Yeah. No, they're not. But oh, dude, the boss battle with Titan in 15 was
Yeah.
wild. It's when you said that this was like the craziest boss battle you experienced. That was the craziest boss battle I have experienced,
Okay.
and it was just from the same boss from the
Yeah.
previous game. So
But
yeah,
you know,
that's
Final Fantasy games are always very different from
yeah.
each
Oh
other.
yeah,
So for
100%.
those listening, you
Yeah,
know,
don't get the wrong
they're
idea.
not just like regurgitating something.
No, guarantee you the two Titan battles are different experiences.
But yeah, when I say 30 minutes, I mean easily 33, 34 minutes, like
Yeah,
from start to
it's like a
finish.
super boss battle.
Yeah, like, and yeah, it never lets up and it just keeps upping the ante. And I think a lot of time for me, what makes a good boss battle is how, how often like am I failing this boss over and over again mid fight?
Hmm.
Like for me, that's I know that sounds lame, but like when I get in like a game over screen constant, I feel like that really takes me out of like these really cinematic moments.
Hmm.
Like there are these optional bosses in Final Fantasy 16 that are known as like S rank hunts,
Oh yeah, Hunts. Yeah,
and those are bosses that you die a lot to.
you're right.
But like the fight is 5 minutes long,
Hmm.
so you just keep throwing yourself at them over and over again. Whereas like if you're dying in the middle of one of these crazy epic 30-minute cinematic fights,
Hmm.
and you know it fades to black, and then you
Right.
have to like it puts you back in the game. Maybe not exactly where you were, but not all the way at the beginning. I don't know. I feel like that kind of really interrupts the flow and enjoyment of
That
these really
would
big
really
battles.
stink to
Yeah.
die at that point.
So I think for me, the fact that I was getting all the moves just right, I was dodging at the right moments. Like Titan's kind of he's slower. You know, he
Hmm.
really telegraphs his movements.
Yeah.
You know, in the various points when you're fighting him. Although sometimes not so much. Um, but so as a player who's maybe not the biggest action gamer, being able to more easily kind of like feel good about getting the dodges just right and stuff.
Hmm.
I don't know. It just made the battle like so much more interesting for me and like enjoyable.
Yeah. That's. I know exactly like where you're coming from with this battle and everything. One thing, not to talk about 15 too much, but I've only read this. I haven't actually attempted it, but apparently after the game, after like you finish the whole game and you've done all the side quests and stuff, there's a boss battle that you unlock with adamantoids, and supposedly it's supposed to take like 48 hours to do the whole battle. Like
What?
yeah, it's. I guess I don't know if that's without any power ups. Like if you were to take off all your armor, and return to like I don't know the original state you were in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a super long 24 to 48 hour
And you're just supposed
battle.
to sit there and
I don't know.
do it?
I haven't tried it. But yeah, they
Okay.
have stuff like
I
that.
mean, I remember hearing Final Fantasy 11 was their first MMO, right?
No, yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And I remember hearing like some player like died playing that game like years
Oh,
and years ago because he was doing something for like so many hours straight and just like wasn't taking care of themselves and they just like
like one
exhausted
task in the
himself.
game, or do you remember? Was it just one thing
Uh,
he was doing?
I honestly, I don't know if it was like a solo battle, some like really hard grind. I've heard that Final Fantasy 11 is like it's designed to just waste your time as much as it
Mm.
possibly can. Okay, so enough about Final Fantasy 16 for now. I'm really trying to I'd like to finish it this weekend, but I suspect I'm still not within that kind of striking distance yet.
Probably not.
But maybe not this weekend, but the weekend after, I'll finally have the game finished, and I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm sad it's going to be ending, but they did recently announce there's going to be like DLC, like expand. I don't know if they're going to be expansions or just sort of like side stories or what, but they said they're going to delve deeper into the world and its characters.
Yeah, I would expect them to do something like that.
Yeah. One other little update I have about what I've been playing, and it's really not a game that I'm talking about, but I had mentioned it in a previous episode. Silent Hill Ascension had its first, or it went live yesterday. And so for several hours, players were able to choose one of three options before the decision became final, and they aired the segment of footage that would become the first part of week 1 of Silent Hill Ascension. And I gotta say, I'm massively disappointed.
Yeah.
You log into this website, and it's ascension.com, and you're immediately greeted with, buy this battle pass, get these cosmetics, get influence points to help your decision mean more.
Right.
And it's just all this junk for like some virtual avatar that's not even like in the show, in the game. It's just like your personal character avatar. You get special little chat emotes that you can put in the chat, like just absolutely ridiculous things. And of course, the game isn't just, hey, let's let everyone vote on what option they want. It's no, we'll give you a little bit of these influence points for free, and there's these little silly puzzles you can do to get more free influence points, or you can just buy it outright. And so basically the people with the biggest wallets are going to be the ones making the decisions for this canon Silent Hill game. And then the other thing that's really, really crappy about it is that it literally tells you get 3 choices, right? For 24 hours, they're letting players choose which of these 3 choices do you want, and you spend your influence points on it. But it's literally like one choice has like a happy face on it, one choice has like a neutral face on it, and one face has like a, okay, I shouldn't say face. They're color coded though, like blue being the good one, the sort of white one being the neutral option, and the sort of red one being the like bad or evil option.
Okay.
And so the majority of people are choosing the good option.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not interesting. Everyone knows what the outcome is going to be, like the best outcome.
Well, okay.
So like the whole point of these like Telltale style decision making games where you have to live with your choices and the consequences
is not knowing what's going to happen. Right.
So what's the point of telling players that pick this one and the best outcome will occur?
Okay, is that what that indicates though, or is it just like a moral?
Yeah, no, it literally says like option 1, redemption, option 2, like run away, option 3, finish the sacrifice, or something like that,
So okay, so it's color coding based on the outcome, not like the moral position.
Yeah,
that's dumb.
Yeah. Like there's no guess. I mean, you're still guessing maybe how exactly it's going to play out, but like you're kind of already clued in so that it's going to be like, oh, this is the good outcome that's going to occur, rather than like, I don't know. To me, why would you color code them? You should just have all 3 options be blank. You shouldn't explicitly kind of spell out what's going to happen.
Right.
The characters should be put into this like situation, and then like they should have 3 options: run away, grab the knife, stay your ground, or something like that. You know, whereas like anything could happen from those 3 options that you select.
You have no idea.
Right.
If being the good guy is going to get you killed.
Yeah.
That. I'm disappointed to hear that, but
and it's just full of all this monetization. I mean, like seriously, they're shoving it down your throat every second you're on that website. There's these like intrusive pop-ups.
Oh
like,
God!
Yeah, like this is what they want. They just want your money. This is what this is. I mean, they've clearly spent a lot of money. The first episode is like a 10-minute long, like animation.
Yeah.
And they're doing a new segment every single night.
Yeah.
So like I've already cast my influence points for, tonight's episode, which I think is maybe airing right now or in a few minutes from when we're recording.
Yeah.
Um, and that means that they had three different, for last night's episode, that means they had three different ones, two of which won't see the light of day,
Right.
and one that will,
Right.
because they post these immediately following the vote's conclusion.
Right.
So I mean, it's obviously they're spending a lot of money. They need to recoup this because it's seemingly free, at least for now. Who knows if they might like paywall it at some point.
This is disappointing to hear all this, but not surprising. This is Konami. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing with their classic, timeless
Well, I think
IPs.
I don't know. This isn't developed by Konami. What I think,
But it's licensed by them.
right. I mean, they gave it their stamp of approval.
Right.
But yeah, this specific company, GenVid, specializes in these kinds of interactive things. They're really trying to do something different. They're trying to stand out. I do wonder if anybody's actually. Well, I'm sure some people are buying into this, but I can't imagine it's a huge amount. I can't imagine they're making their money.
I really highly doubt that it's.
Watch me be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't know anything.
Of course. Oh, if I swipe my credit card, my opinion can mean more than everyone else's. Wonderful.
Right. I don't see the die-hard Silent Hill old-timers who've been around since Silent Hill 2 or the original being into this.
This is not for them, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, it's Silent Hill in branding only.
Right.
Not even a name.
Yeah, which is sad because there have been spin-offs and stuff in the past that didn't scream Silent Hill tradition,
right.
but we're still games. We're still viable.
I mean, it's possible this could have stood on its own as something unique,
right,
and good,
right.
But because they're associating themselves with Silent Hill, I feel like they're only upsetting people.
Right. That would, yeah. It's not the first time that mistake's been made by companies either.
No. I mean, thankfully, Konami's got some other Silent Hill projects in the works.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, for now, considering this is the first Silent Hill project in like a decade, and this is what fans are getting, yeah, it's certainly disappointing. Although I am curious to see how the story of this interactive thing plays out.
Interactive website.
Yeah, I mean the little puzzles and things to solve. I did one of them, and it's like click around this like room, which is just like a flat like image,
mm-hmm.
and like find the hidden pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
At least these puzzles are kind of tied into something,
I guess. I mean, there's like match 3 games.
Yeah.
And like
kind of themed by, Silent Hill.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know that there's any like lore coming out of the puzzle. They're just seemingly like, ooh, dingy looking room. Find the paper.
Right. Yeah, that's.
Oh
boy.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate because this sounded unique, regardless of what I thought of it beforehand. I want to see something like this do well, but sounds like it's gonna be just another gotcha cash grab interactive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite a gotcha, but it definitely is. It's got some predatory monetization stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how else they do this when they're not really selling a product. They're just selling you, a video that you don't even have to pay for if you don't want to. Right. So I guess the only way you can make money off of it, if it's going to be free to all, is that you have to let people that want to pay make the decisions for everyone.
Yeah.
Which is just disappointing. I feel like it would have been better to charge everyone $20
for a subscription or something.
And then somehow let it be playable interactively, like after the fact.
Right.
Like sure, establish the canon route
and put it on freaking PS5 or something, not web browser.
I was reading something. There is some kind of Sony connectivity with this. Like I was reading there's some like benefit where if you're like a PlayStation Plus premium member or something, you get like extra influence points for the game or something like that. But it's not. I don't believe that it's playable on a PlayStation platform. It's
Mm-hmm.
on Android, iOS via a special app,
Mm-hmm.
and then on via a web browser as well. So maybe there's a way to open the web browser version on PS5. I'm not really sure. Um, but yeah, I'll continue to check it out periodically and see how it develops. But it's disappointing to see that they've gone with the expected monetization scheme. I mean, I'm disappointed in that there's no real decision to be made if you're picking the good outcome, the worst outcome.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I don't know. Like both days, it's been by a landslide that like the good option,
Right.
the blue coded option,
Right.
is being like chosen. So I get it. People want to try to get through the whole thing with like as many people surviving or whatever as possible, but like it's more interesting when like bad stuff happens. Like when you make the wrong choice and you have to live with the consequences.
Right. I mean, I find it too brain dead to be possible that will only ever result in good things happening
I
in
mean, it's still
survival.
Silent Hill and brand, so I'm sure bad things will still happen when we're always choosing if the players are massively choosing the good option.
Right.
But I'm guessing like they wouldn't be as bad as if a different option had been selected.
You're right. I mean, I just hope the developer like pulls a twist and makes that the option that gets everyone
Or
killed
I
or
hope
something.
after a few days they see what's happening
Yeah.
with the game and they realize, oh my god, like we made a mistake. We need to reconfigure this UI so it's not so apparent,
Right.
what choice is being selected here. Because if they don't, I don't understand the point. Like
Right.
I'll just tune in at the end.
Or they write the future story in a way that throws everyone through a loop and gets everyone killed.
I
I'm
mean,
fine
it's
with that
possible.
too.
Maybe it is intentionally. Maybe they are trying to like say, "Oh, you think this is the good option?
Right.
Well, actually, you were all wrong. You
I
should
mean,
have been
Silent Hill is supposed to be psychological horror, so
right."
that,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is being made in America,
yeah.
and
I use
for mass.
the name Silent Hill loosely.
Yeah. But aside from that, that's all I've been up to. I didn't buy anything this past week. There's a bunch of releases coming out in November. My wallet is going to be struggling this month, but I will try to make it through unscathed. I have a pretty strict budget for myself, so I don't really know how I'm gonna fit everything I have pre-ordered into this budget.
Yeah.
But I may have to refuse some games and return them. But one thing that's coming out very soon is the complete edition of Scarlet and Violet
Mm-hmm.
with the DLC on cartridge.
Yeah.
And these are $95 each.
Each?
Each.
Shoot. So not even like a box set of both?
No. No, like so the cartridge has like the expansions on them unlocked, so there's no internet check required. And they did this for Sword and Shield version as well.
Mm-hmm.
And those versions of Sword and Shield are now very valuable.
Yeah.
They go for $200 sealed now. So as someone who has every Pokemon game in box, every main series Pokemon game in box, I consider these like the deluxe versions of these games. So yeah, I gotta have them for my collection.
Right.
So yeah, not two $95 transactions back to back is gonna.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard.
That's gonna be tough. But I'll talk more about some stuff I've got coming out next week. I'll have some games that have arrived.
All right.
But let's jump over to what have we been up to. I personally haven't been up to much. Haven't gone to any cool events or anything. But I think Rick has something he wants to share with us.
I've been working with my composer from my game development, Seraphim. He's writing some music for for the podcast. So we're kind of doing more of an ad lib, or is that
I don't think that's
improv
okay.
kind of approach to the writing of it.
Okay.
But we're shooting stuff back and forth with each other.
Nice.
I'm sending examples and, you know, directing the way that I normally do with that stuff.
Maybe by episode 10.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be cool for our 10th episode?
The process is taking longer than I had hoped it would, but it is what it is, and one day we will have music.
But yeah, one day you're going to tune in, and it's not just going to start with me talking. We're going to have some cool...
We'll have an intro, and we'll have probably an outro.
And I can't wait. That's gonna make us feel like big time, like we've hit it. We're professionals.
I'm also working on like recovering all my old art assets from the BitBeacon website so that I can update the cover art and make everything just better. I want to do the same to the website itself too. So I know where that stuff is. It's in storage, and that creates a project.
Your hard drive is in storage?
Yeah, it is. But I am working on that stuff.
I looked through all of my old hard drives, and I don't have any of those assets. That's all you.
Yep, I know.
But anyways, music on the horizon.
Yeah.
Episode 10 would be cool, but maybe episode 15 or 20.
It's coming.
It's coming. And, this comes from our good friend of the show.
Yep, Matthew Kierkegaard.
A.K.A. Peach Toadstool on Twitter, or X, as I should say.
He's also, you can catch him on the Game Explain channel as well.
Yes, he does some amazing analysis videos for them.
He's doing a lot of Mario Kart right now.
Yes, if you're watching Game Explain's Mario Kart course comparison videos, that's our guy Matthew. He's awesome. Yeah. And so... Matthew, if you're listening, appreciate you spending time, a little bit of your free time working on our thing, and
we appreciate it, man.
Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna just switch over to the news, and we're gonna start off with kind of a big one. Nintendo has announced new community tournament guidelines for their current and relevant esports games, so to say. Being Splatoon 3 and the big one, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yep.
So now what do these guidelines mean? They could mean everything. They could mean the difference between tournaments that have been going on for years no longer being able to function unless they comply with these very specific guidelines that Nintendo is setting out for them.
And they are specific, and they are extreme.
Yeah, I mean, like other companies, they have guidelines for esports, and there's been uproar about various things from players over the years. But this is on another level. I mean, this is like a massive fundamental change. Is that like how, if you want to play our games, Nintendo doesn't let people. Nintendo never does anything the right way. They do everything the hard way.
Yeah, they just want to control what comes out regarding their property.
Now, there's been a lot of problems that Nintendo has had. A couple of years ago, they really tried to make a push into esports with this specific partner, Panda Global or Panda Gaming. They had this big, huge Super Smash Bros. Tournament circuit, and the whole thing blew up because of some controversy with the guy who founded Panda. Turns out he was like telling Nintendo not to give licenses for tournaments to like certain other organizations because they weren't part of his tournament circuit.
Oh, you're right.
And so all this drama, the whole Panda tournament thing ended up exploding like right before the grand finale that was going to be in Los Angeles last year. And I think Nintendo is just kind of ready to wash their hands of this whole thing. Like, they've been trying, and it just hasn't been working out for them. And so this is their way of making it even harder for other people.
They probably have a bad taste in their mouth too.
I do, and I understand Nintendo's frustration. But let's just talk about some of these tournaments. I'm just gonna go over some bullet points real quick.
Yep.
So going forward, tournaments must be not for profit.
Which, I mean, just that right there. Like, what?
So what incentive is there for people to organize these massive tournaments that require so much work, so much coordination. I mean, they're allowed to pay people from the money they take in from the organize or from the players.
Right.
Like, there's entry
They're
fees.
allowed to take money to pay for their own operations for the event.
Right.
That's not profit.
So they can only charge no more than a $20 entry fee for players and only a $15 entry fee for spectators. Doesn't matter how big your event is,
Right.
what expensive venue you booked.
And because Nintendo owns the rights and property rights to the game that's being played, they feel that it is within their jurisdiction how much people should pay to get in the door to this event.
Like, you shouldn't be making a profit off a game that we created. That's their thinking.
Right.
But again, for these tournament organizers, is, again, what incentive? They're just supposed to do this out of their own goodwill.
Right, yeah, just for hobby, I guess.
Like, this is a full-time job. A massive, huge job.
It's an industry.
Yeah, some of these guys, like, they do events all over the place, all over the country, all year long. And now Nintendo's basically saying, you can't make money. Like, you can pay yourself, but you can't, like, have money set aside. Like, you can't turn a profit.
Right.
Which is just crazy.
Nintendo, I mean, the right way to do this would be Nintendo just be like, hey, apply for a license. We take 30% of everything, and we give you whatever support we can offer you. That would be a way better approach than what they're doing here. Continue.
Yeah. So the next big bullet point is that a single entity, so like let's say there's one tournament organizer that does 5 tournaments a year across the country, different parts of the world, whatever, they're allowed to award no more than $10,000 in prize money in a single year. For some events, $10,000 is what, like, the first place person wins. So then that would mean that they're no longer allowed to award any other money to anyone else.
I mean, all the esports tournaments I've ever, like, tuned into or paid attention to, the first place prize was like 20 grand and up.
Depending on the tournament, like for something like Evo in Las Vegas, those tend to have a much larger prize pool than some other ones.
Right.
But for example, Capcom is doing their own in-house tournament, and their grand prize this year is $1 million. That's for first place.
Capcom gets it. Capcom's like, oh, this is us. They're playing our game. Let's be
a part of it.
Let's take ownership. And
they partner with other tournaments that, like, then essentially, like, players earn points at these other tournaments to qualify
for Capcom. That's
Cup.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is the right way to do it.
And this is kind of what Nintendo was trying to get involved with last year, but then it blew up in their face.
Right.
So again, I feel like this is a really big overreaction on Nintendo's part.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other thing is the max prize value cannot exceed $5,000. So you can't give an individual more than $5,000.
Yeah. So even though there's a $10,000 limit, you can't award $10,000
to a single person.
Right.
You could only award a max of 5,000,
which is ridiculous.
So now some of these places that have multiple tournaments are now going to have to consider, like, going down to less tournaments overall, which may make it just not even worth it for them to do it anymore, because then it's like, well, what do I do the other 9 months out of the year when I'm not planning my one tournament?
Right. And even if you stayed within these numbers, you're only allowed 10,000 per year, so you can blow that at one event.
Yeah.
And then you can't host another event for the rest of the year. Already, this is making it not worth anyone's time to host an event.
I mean,
like
players.
This.
Okay, well, let's talk prize pool at a lot of these games, or a lot of these smaller tournaments or mid-sized tournaments is not very large. So I don't think, for at least someone who's only running one tournament a year, the $10,000 prize pool will probably be okay. I mean, I've seen people get like 5th or 6th place at like a tournament and walk away with $100.
Yeah,
like that doesn't even cover their flight expenses.
Right.
Now, most of these pro players don't make their money from tournaments. What they make their money from are the sponsorships.
Right.
and a lot of them are streamers. So a lot of them are streaming whenever they're not online, and they're getting the donations, they're getting the sponsors there. So the prize money isn't like the biggest thing, but for some players, especially like the players who are unsigned and not with like a team or a sponsor, I mean, if they win a $5,000 tournament, that's a big deal for them. That like validates them. And there are people who track like how much money players have earned from tournaments, and that puts them on like a ranking board, when they win one of these kinds of things.
Right.
So the other thing organizers have to do regarding finances is that shortly after the event ends, organizers collecting fees must publicly disclose all accounting related to the cost of hosting the event. That means they have to be super transparent about everything. It has to be on their website. It has to be announced on social media. Otherwise, Nintendo will shut you down.
Right.
Because Nintendo wants to be able to immediately look at those financials and make sure you're not pocketing any cash beyond what's reasonable for hosting this tournament and paying yourself a salary essentially.
Right.
Which is just like
I mean, that's not the biggest rotten egg in this list.
No, it's not, but it ties in with all of this financial stuff and Nintendo not wanting people to turn a profit.
Right. Yeah,
and
it does.
It's weirdly invasive.
It is.
And like, I don't even understand how Nintendo can demand this. I personally don't know how Nintendo even can legally enforce this. Yeah, if no one's ever entered an agreement, like how can they actually enforce any of this? I'm not totally sure. So another thing outside of the finances, tournaments cannot be named after or reference Nintendo or its IPs. So there are tournaments that happen across the country, across the world, that will have words like Smash in it. Like there's one that's like Super Smash Con, or there's one that like will have like the word Hyrule in its name, or Lilat, or something referencing like characters or IPs represented in like Smash Brothers or Splatoon. And so now there's several of these cons, and like they're big ones, or these tournaments, and now they all have to change their name next year.
Right. I feel like it'd be kind of hard for Nintendo to come at something called SmashCon, like because there's no saying that is referencing.
Right. Well, it's SmashCon, and the game being played is Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah. So... Okay. Yeah. Logically, yes, but they're not stealing a name.
Well, basically, if you apply, so
Smash is a word in the dictionary.
Where this is getting to is that Nintendo, and I'm not done covering all the changes, but Nintendo is going to require organizations to apply for a license in order to certified, have a Nintendo, not necessarily even approved, but just a Nintendo licensed event.
Right.
Nintendo is not putting their stamp of approval on any of these things. They're just granting a license to have these events. So if you pitch Nintendo, hi, I want to put in a license for Super Smash Con, Nintendo's going to say, no, you need to change your name.
Right.
So if you want a licensed event, then Nintendo isn't going to come after. They're basically bullying people into changing the name of their tournament.
Yep.
So another big thing that's going to affect revenue is that if the tournament is streamed on YouTube or Twitch, beyond the ads that are normally embedded into YouTube and Twitch streams, you are not allowed to have any third-party advertising built into your stream.
Like sponsored ads. And
no sponsored ads, no tournament merch, none of that. So there's another revenue stream completely cut off for these events. I mean, the people running these events are not gazillionaires.
No.
They're not. Like they're getting by. Maybe they're doing okay, but it's an insane amount of work.
Yeah.
What they're doing.
Oh yeah.
And that's a huge, like people that, would normally get paid are now going to end up being like volunteer positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to have people that would get paid just get kicked out, and they'll find someone who's willing to do it for free.
Okay. So wait, was that the last bullet point? No, right?
The last bullet point is just that when it comes to the licenses, Nintendo, it's up to their discretion whether they approve you or not, and it specifically points that out in the description, like you may or may not be approved, and we don't have to tell you why or why not.
Right.
Now there have been, when this news first broke, um, the community, the Smash community in particular, was like extremely distraught. They were like, "This is the end for Smash Brothers."
Hmm.
But since last week, when this news first broke, some tournament organizers that have partnered with Nintendo currently or in the past came out and said that getting a license is not as big of a deal. It's not as hard. It's usually pretty easy. Um, so they seem to be more optimistic.
Hmm.
Um, whether that means, this is a new licensing process that Nintendo says is going to become available in mid-November. So it's unsure if it's going to be different from how it's worked previously.
Right.
So if it's going to continue to be a pretty simple process, or if it's going to be a challenging process and people are going to see rejections or not.
I think the page on Nintendo's website that covers these guidelines say that they take effect November 15th. So none of this stuff applies until November 15th, which is
Right.
just
And I think there's a small grace period where if your event was already announced and is happening before the end of the year,
Mhm.
it can continue, just fine. But if you have a 2024 event already on the books,
Yeah.
you will have to apply for a license in mid-November, which probably is this November 15th date that you're talking about when
Right.
it takes effect, to run a tournament. Otherwise, Nintendo could potentially threaten
Right.
your event.
And Nintendo has a reputation for being extremely litigious.
The Nintendo Ninjas, they're
Yeah.
called.
Right. So imagine you are a professional esports Super Smash Brothers Ultimate player. How do you feel about all this?
It's been interesting. I've been watching some reactions from some of the players online, and initially it was very doom and gloom. There's still a lot of doubt and uncertainty. There have been some voices, like I said, that have come out and said, "Let's wait and see, guys. It might not be as bad as it seems like it is on paper."
Mm-hmm.
So I think people have gotten a little more optimistic. Now there may have to be some compromises made in order to continue. Like some of these tournaments, they still play Super Smash Brothers Melee, the GameCube version
Right.
of Super Smash Brothers. That's still enormously, enduringly popular today.
Right.
Some would say even more so than.
Well, it's regarded as the best in the series.
Yeah, I mean, Ultimate gives it a good run for its money now.
Sure.
I think Ultimate now has more viewers than Melee, but it's still a lot for. Basically, these guidelines don't seem to mention these licenses aren't granted for Melee. So players are like, well, are Melee tournaments even going to be allowed at all? And then another big aspect of Melee is that there's a popular modified version of Melee that people play online on a PC via emulation that allows players to play online. And some of these tournament organizers have in-person tournaments and they have online tournaments. But if they want to partner with Nintendo officially, they might have to cancel these online Melee tournaments because they're basically playing with a modified version of the game,
Right.
which is prohibited in these new Nintendo guidelines.
Yeah.
Even if the modified version of the game is obtained legally, if it's modified, you can't play it, period.
Right.
So some tournament organizers are going to have to decide, if we move forward and try to do this Nintendo's way, we're going to have to say goodbye to these online Melee tournaments that we host all the time,
Right.
which generate a lot of income for in the meantime when the in-person events aren't happening.
Right. It just, you have to wonder, like, where's this coming from in Nintendo's mind? Are they trying to maybe host their own things in the future and they're trying to make it impossible, or have to get a license for other event hosts? I don't know. It's really weird. It's just very bizarre.
People were hoping that maybe Nintendo would return to Evo. They haven't been present at Evo the last 2 years, which is Evo is the huge fighting game tournament that happens in Los Angeles every year. It's basically the premier fighting game event.
Right.
It gets millions and millions of people watching. Nothing comes as close in terms of viewership that Evo does, and people fly out from all over the world for this thing
just to spectate.
just to spectate, and like the players, like every top player is there with little exceptions.
Right.
So it's really, and players and spectators get to get up close and personal, and you get to like watch them play like at the little chairs in the aisle. It's a huge event. I've been in the past few years. It's a really good time, but it's not the same now that Nintendo hasn't been there. And with these new guidelines, I don't see how Evo would ever agree to any of this. They're definitely a for-profit company. They're a huge venture. They're part owned by PlayStation now. So I think
that right there would say no to Nintendo. That might be why Nintendo.
Well, it's funny. After PlayStation bought them, when they were getting ready to announce the games for 2022, they preemptively put out a statement saying Nintendo has declined to allow for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
So it was Nintendo's choice.
Right, and they said, we reached out to them. We want them to be a part of the event, but they said no.
Yeah.
So it's like, we hope they, will come back in the future, but they didn't come back this year. I think it's safe to say they're not coming back anytime ever.
You have to wonder what is going on.
These events make these games last forever.
Oh yeah.
Like
these events, even if we're not the biggest esports people, players, or it just doesn't occupy much of our gaming journey, they're hugely important.
Yeah, like if the next Smash Brothers game comes out in whatever 10 years from now, and these archaic rules are still in place, like these games will sell significantly less because they've made the barrier to want to get involved in the community so high.
Yeah, we're at the point in the landscape where tournaments and Evo and esports is a huge factor in the sale of fighting games.
Yeah.
So if you come out with a fighting game, you better be friendly toward tournaments, at least the idea of it.
I mean, it's interesting. Nintendo has seemingly always tried to, for whatever reason, they're like adverse to calling it like Smash Brothers a fighting game, and it's not a traditional fighting game.
No, it's not. It's not a tournament fighter. But technically,
I mean, they have added things over time that do make it more competitive friendly. Like you can turn off items. You can make all the stages like Final Destination or Battlefield or Big Battlefield, which are like the really common popular stages.
Right.
Played at tournaments. But they always are quick to point out it's a party game. It's for everyone. Whenever Nintendo hosts their own like online tournament or in-person Smash tournament, which they do on occasion, it's always like items are on, ultimates are on, which
I prefer items on.
Right.
It's Super Smash Brothers.
Right. When I get it, but it adds a huge sense of randomness in like a competitive environment that doesn't allow for like skill to triumph.
Right.
Which is what you want in a competitive environment. A tournament environment, let me say.
There's a whole debate to be had there. I think that part of it comes down to the player's ability to adapt to that, chance factor.
Sure.
And, the word melee literally refers to fighting with your environment and surrounding objects, etc. I think that that's the spirit of Smash Brothers.
I agree.
And I think that should be a part of the competition. And again, it is a skill when a player is able to adapt to what items pop up, what items your opponent has.
Definitely. But when I'm watching the two greatest players duke it out, I don't want the thing deciding a match to be a banana peel.
Yeah.
And I just cursed, and I'm going to have to edit that out. I'm sorry to all the children
I
watching.
understand that. Or more likely like a home run bat or something. But I do.
I mean, that's fine. When I'm playing with friends, I want items on. I want Final Smashes on. They make the game more flashy. They make the game more fun.
Yeah.
But I side
if you want a hardline tournament fighter that's skill and skill only, go play Tekken.
Right, but people like Smash Brothers is a specific kind of fighter. It's a platform fighter. the people that are good at platform fighters are not necessarily good at Tekken. So I look, there are options in the game. Clearly, they accommodate those players as much as they accommodate the players that like items.
Sure.
So I mean, if the game has options to turn those things off and to make the game into a tournament, competitive, high level play setting, then I think that's just as valid. And I think Nintendo, while they make those options available, it seems like they refuse to acknowledge that they're even there.
Yeah, I understand Nintendo's approach to that. I do. I side with it. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if they wanted items to always be on, then they wouldn't even have an option to turn them off.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, player options are just part of any game, but player options don't dictate the way the game should be played just because an option is available.
Right.
Like, turning colorblind mode on doesn't indicate that the game is intended to or designed to be played.
Dude, you're
that way.
comparing colorblind mode to turning items off.
I'm comparing player options.
Okay, I mean
Like,
that's. I mean, yeah, I don't see that argument personally.
It's only sort of that way. It's not entirely like what I'm saying, but yeah, I don't know. I think
both communities can be valid.
The game design is clearly involving items.
Right.
Period.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I fall on that.
Yeah, I mean, some characters can even make items.
Right.
Yeah, and those characters are often considered to be pretty overpowered because projectiles, and often it's not the items that are powerful, it's just chucking an item at an enemy can, another player can send them flying off the screen.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I also, as someone who does engage with the competitive scene in terms of like as a someone who watches from the side, I think it's far more nerve-wracking and like edge of my seat. Like, we're talking about two titans that are, gods. There's people known as like the five melee gods, and like if you throw items in the mix, then that all just goes out the window. I mean, I get it. Sure, it would be exciting for some Joe Schmo to show up and like slay the gods with a super scope.
It's not even about that though. It's about the game design of Super Smash Brothers.
Right.
That's it.
And yeah, Sakurai, the creator of Super Smash Brothers, has come out and said that it's a party game.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I agree with him.
And he wants it to. He's not really into the competitive side of things so much himself personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's added more and more to the game to make it more accessible for competitive players. And I'm just repeating myself now. We're clearly not going to come to an agreement on this.
No, we're not.
And that's okay. But I don't know. I just think it's possible for both to be served. I just think I just don't understand why Nintendo spits on the competitive side. I mean, this is an example of them doing that.
Right.
They're just trying to make their lives hard.
I mean, we can shift away from Super Smash Brothers and focus on Splatoon when we talk about this stuff. That is absolutely a competitive game. I won't, argue that.
I mean, there's items and loadouts and things that, maybe some would be considered more powerful than others. I don't follow the Splatoon competitive stuff nearly as much as I do Smash Brothers. But yeah, I would agree. Splatoon was definitely made with almost like with esports in mind, I would say.
Right.
More so than Super Smash Brothers ever was.
Right.
But let's move on because, like I said, we're not going to come to a consensus on this one.
Well, we're talking about the disagreement is specifically over Super Smash Brothers, not the topic at hand.
Yeah. No, the topic that Nintendo is just making players' lives hard and tournament organizers hard. Right. I mean, that's just impossible to deny. Right. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're like trying to snuff it out.
But there was some troubling news, Rick. Why don't you talk about this next topic?
Okay, so it's not so much news as it is a rumor, but it's a rumor that I would say is likely to be somewhat true.
I'd say it's credible.
It is credible. So Josh Fairhurst from Limited Run Games, one of the co-founders of Limited Run, tweeted that he understands that Walmart will stop selling physical Xbox games in 2024. So not too long ago, we talked about Best Buy shutting down their sale of
DVDs and
DVDs
Blu-rays
and
and
Blu-rays.
movies.
If this is true, this is an even worse step in the direction we don't want to go.
Yeah, the fact that a whole game publisher, a whole game console maker,
Right.
will essentially not be selling physical games in stores anymore.
And if this is in any way true, it's not going to end with Xbox. It's just going to start with Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not going to stop with Walmart. I
No.
would say if Xbox games are going away at Walmart next year, Xbox games are probably going away at Target. Xbox games are probably going away at Best Buy.
Yes.
I think, and we've mentioned this previously. If anyone's going to go all digital,
It's going to be
gonna
Xbox. And if any player base is going to be ready to accept it,
Right.
it's going to be Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, the PC space is obviously the most accepting of digital.
They're already kind of
and
there.
Xbox is, I don't want to say it's an extension of the PC space, but they're both
Microsoft.
dominated by Microsoft.
Right.
So I think a lot of people who game on Xbox probably game on PC too, maybe.
We're not trying to pigeonhole Xbox gamers, but we do understand that the style of games, gameplay, and monetization,
just Game
stuff.
Pass,
Right? Game Pass,
like
yeah.
players on Xbox are really likely to subscribe to Game Pass, which is this all we talked about before, the all digital service where you just download all of the first party games as soon as they're released, for $16 a month.
Right.
And in addition to that, a whole slew, hundreds of third party games as well that you have access to.
Right.
Um,
It's unfortunate to see this happen to Xbox, but I know it spells the same fate for the consoles that I do play, which is
I mean, have you been into a Walmart lately?
yeah, but not the electronics.
See, like for me, whenever I go to a retailer, no matter what I'm there for, I gotta
you
go by the game section.
I usually do.
Yeah, I have to go to
unless
the game
I'm in a
section.
hurry.
Even if I'm not buying anything there, I just want to look.
Yeah.
And I've seen it at Target where things have shrunken down. I mean, the Xbox aisle isn't even an aisle anymore.
Right. It's a
Sony-
end cap or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one segment of an aisle.
Right.
PlayStation has shrunk. Nintendo still has a decent footprint, but it's still not as big as it used to be.
No.
But I mean, Xbox is just pitiful, the section, and it's even worse at Walmart. I mean, first of all, they can be a disaster from one Walmart to the next.
Yeah.
I mean, just
and they've like the quality of the store varies greatly between Walmart locations.
Yeah, and you get usually employees that don't want to help you, or don't know anything,
or aren't even at the desk.
Yeah, like good luck getting a game.
Right.
You got to find someone who's got keys. It'll take 20 minutes before they show up to the electronics section. And yeah, the game, Walmart used to have really good deals for whatever reason. Until last year, every game at Walmart was always 20% off on launch day. So like a $60 game was always $59.99. A $50 launch game was always $49.99. So for a while I was getting all my physical games at Walmart, like if I wanted to play them on day one,
right? Because
they were immediately discounted. I don't know why they were doing that, but then that stopped last year, and so I wasn't going to Walmart as much. But yeah, generally speaking, it's not worth going to Walmart to buy games. And for me personally,
I have one exception to that. Otherwise, I completely disagree with agree with what you're saying. The bargain bin at Walmart when it comes to games is the best thing of any retailer.
Yeah, if you're looking for your DS copy of Cory in the House, that's where you go to find it.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about PS4 titles, PS5
okay,
titles.
Yeah, I have seen people score some crazy games on clearance
I have.
for $5. We're talking $60 games.
I picked up Sonic Mania on PS4 years ago already for $5.
Yeah.
And
stores, they all clearance things seemingly at random.
Right.
So I'll see people online look at what I got for $10. This 2-month-old game is all already discounted 90%
right.
at Walmart, and then I go and it's full price.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know where these Walmarts are that get these crazy good deals, and it is just luck sometimes.
Hmm.
But I'll see people like buy like 20 copies of something because they were $5,
Right.
and like they'll flip them online for 30, $40 each.
Yeah, that happens. And everything's brand new, so you can keep it sealed if you want.
Yeah.
And.
Or yeah, if you like, you're looking at a certain game as an investment piece,
Right.
which I don't really recommend for games.
No. Um, it really depends on what we're talking about, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the only games I own that have really, really retained their value and gone up in value
Nintendo
tremendously,
games.
yeah, are all like Pokemon games,
Yeah.
especially. Like the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games are nuts now.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
Pokemon Emerald is like $200 loose.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Loose,
Yeah.
dude, loose. Um, yeah, it's a Pokemon box
Mm-hmm.
in the big box, complete in box. A sale in September. Guess how much money?
Yeah. 300, 500.
Pokemon box. This is the thing that was only available from the Pokemon Center online
Right.
store.
I
Okay.
500.
If you have it in the big box, not just the jewel case, not the jewel case, but
Yeah. Okay. The cardboard box is probably 1,000.
okay, so if it's in big box, complete with cable, manual, stickers, memory card, game, $4,300.
Shoot, that's like, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways, but those games are included in Walmart's selection of games too.
not Pokemon box,
Not Pokemon box, but
but yeah, you can find good stuff in there.
Nintendo
Yeah.
first party titles.
Yeah, occasionally, yeah, you can, and sometimes they're not in the bin. Sometimes they're in the
The
case,
glass case,
and
yeah.
they've just got a really crazy markdown price.
Right.
Sometimes they're not even marked down. They're just someone will go to check out, and it'll ring up. At
Well,
like
you
some
can
weird...
expect a lot more games to be marked down very soon at some of these.
Yeah, especially if you're into Xbox, you'll
Right.
probably be able to get some good games at bargain prices there.
Exactly.
But I saw reports from people online replying to Josh's tweet that like their Walmart doesn't even have Xbox games already.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Mine does.
I believe that though. I mean I have seen some Walmarts that have like barely the tiniest hint of games.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
to see that Xbox games have already been eliminated, think about it. Most of the people buying Xboxes are on Game Pass, so they don't have a need to buy the physical games.
Right.
So Walmart probably sees that and they're selling like one Xbox game a week. And they're like, why are we dedicating this much retail space to such an
Right.
insignificant profit margin?
Right. But yeah, we can expect to see this from more retailers, and like we said, Best Buy's already gone this direction. I thought I had read that Target had already gone this way, and Best Buy was actually following Target.
No, like you mean Walmart?
No, Best Buy. I'm talking about the movies,
Oh no,
the DVDs and stuff.
you can still get movies
At Target?
Yeah,
Okay,
they still sell music CDs and vinyl at Target.
that's true.
So, like, I was just in there the other day.
Watch vinyl outlive like
Oh,
DVDs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they make more money on vinyl music than they probably do selling DVDs now. I think there's some people that do still buy DVDs. I mean, I work at a library. I buy a lot of DVDs for our library.
Mm-hmm.
We have over 10,000 DVDs and Blu-rays in our collection.
Right.
So, I mean, I still want to keep buying them. I think they'll be around for a while longer.
Oh yeah.
But I do think you're going to see more of this kind of stuff transition to just online purchases, whereas physical retailers won't need to carry them anymore because
Right.
they become a niche product that
Right.
people just buy it online anyway. So they don't go to a store to like browse movies the way that they used to.
Right. And it's not like we can have a vinyl re-release of an old, game that's proprietary media.
Exactly. Yeah, it's re-releasing a game
Right.
is a whole lot of work compared to just pressing a vinyl again.
Right.
So we're gonna switch gears. Over a few weeks ago we were celebrating that the new PlayStation 5 Slim console is going to have a model with the disk drive built into it,
Yes.
as well as a digital only model, and that these models are going to replace the currently on the market PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 digital model, meaning those are going to be phased out.
And we also raised the question, are these models any different in any way, or is one just have the thing that the other one doesn't?
Right. So we got some answers to this question.
We did.
The answer is that they're not different.
They are not.
They're both the slim model. The only difference is that the one that's being sold as the physical model has a disk drive pre-installed with the alternate cover that fits the disk drive.
I suppose you could just say that the shell of the console is different.
The shell of the console is different, and the disk drive is just pre-installed, and you save a little bit of money.
Right.
So, I mean, that's interesting in and of itself, but really the big piece of news out of here is that in order to use the disk drive, you will have to connect your new console to the internet and activate the disk drive. Yeah. Pair it with your console.
Right.
Which means
defeats the entire purpose of having a physical console with, readable media. The whole point is to have something that can play games offline.
Right.
Forever.
So, but now you're making the thing that lets you play physical games require
an internet connection to a server that we already talked about. Servers, it's not going to be there forever.
No, one day that server's going to go offline.
Now, that's not to say that PlayStation in the future can't release a patch or something to these consoles that fixes it.
Now, but then, okay, let's say I buy this physical disc model and I want to keep it sealed. And then 20 years from now, my PS5 has died, so I'm going to open my sealed, perfect condition PS5 with disc model.
Right.
The firmware servers are down.
Mm-hmm.
The disk drive activating thing is down.
Nothing is there anymore.
Yeah. Now it's just a giant paperweight that looks real pretty and pristine.
The only thing that's going to fix this is if there's enough of an uproar about it that PlayStation releases some kind of solution.
Now they have done something like this before. There was a bit of an uproar over there's a battery, like one of those watch batteries, those flat watch batteries, inside the PS4 and the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And when this battery dies, it basically causes the console to lose synchronization.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to stay synchronized, basically this battery is keeping this certificate, this digital certificate alive that'll let you launch games.
Mm-hmm.
So when that battery died, people had found out that you could no longer launch games unless you were connected to PlayStation Network.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant that if PlayStation Network goes down or they cut off the interaction to PS4 one day, you wouldn't be able to play any of your digital or physical games.
Right.
So Sony did release a firmware update for the PS4 that got rid of that. Still a problem on the PS3 though.
Yeah, that's
and they haven't done anything to rectify that. So yeah, sure, could they maybe issue a firmware update, and could maybe you install this firmware update from a USB drive after the servers go off one day? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But it's just absolutely redundant.
Yeah.
What if I don't know, the thing that looks appealing about this console is that disk drives are known to fail eventually.
Right. They are, yeah.
So the fact that you have a modular console where you could, your old one failed, you don't have to replace the old console.
Right.
You can just pair a new disk drive to it. So someone who might buy this new Slim and then buys an extra disk drive to save for a rainy day sometime down in their life,
mm-hmm.
now they wouldn't be able to activate it,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Can you activate it now and then unattach it and put it back on?
I kind of understand why, but I really don't understand why the hardware can't just authenticate, the peripheral.
Sure. So what are they worried about? They're worried about people using third-party things that would maybe enable piracy or something like that.
Right, of course. But if the peripheral has a, some kind of checksum certificate or something that is, the console sees as valid.
Right. I mean, I guess maybe it could be spoofed.
That's probably the only reason
Yeah.
to have it
I don't know.
online.
So maybe at some point in the life cycle, they'll release a firmware update because they're not maybe as worried about PS5 piracy anymore
Right.
because they moved on to PlayStation 7 or something.
Right. But those that are stored in boxes, your SOL, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to install it on like a
I
USB.
guess if you buy one to save for a rainy day, activate it and then pack it back up
Right.
because if you try to do it down the line at some point, you may not be able to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just stupid.
It's
It's
yeah.
just stupid.
It's just
And especially if it's pre-installed,
right.
activate it at the manufacturer.
Right.
The point of manufacturing.
Right. That's yeah. That's the other really stupid point about this is that the ones that I understand this about the ones that are modular, but the ones that are together, why does the console need to be paired with the console?
Because all someone did while the console was off is slap it on.
Yeah.
Because it is the same exact console as the digital one.
Right. And that's how we know that they are the same.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I mean, on one hand, if this problem didn't exist, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Because then it's like, great, so the disc one is also modular. Like, awesome.
Right.
So then I can get a replacement one without having to spend $500 on a new PlayStation 5.
Right.
If my disc drive ever fails. Like, that's great. More things. I do think more things should be modular that way.
Sure.
And, it's more consumer friendly, for one.
Right.
But this is not consumer friendly by requiring the online check.
You're ensuring that the console can't exist forever.
Right.
Or play games forever.
And I know some people are probably listening to this going like, it's just an internet connection.
Right.
Like it's, and I get it. It's something that's going to take 10 seconds to do. And
yeah.
Everyone has internet.
Right.
But it's the principle.
Yeah. And that internet connection is downloading a file to your console that authenticates it. Or it's sending up a file that authenticates it. And that
server's
server
not going to be there.
Exactly.
One day it'll be turned off.
Yeah. And that's the point.
Like, without fail, that will happen.
Yes. I was going to ask you, which of the two would you buy?
I mean, just because I know that they're the same thing, and you save money by buying the one with the disc drive already installed, I would buy that one.
Is that your only reason, or is there something about the console that makes you prefer that one?
I mean... Are you aware of something I'm not?
No.
They're the same exact thing.
They are the same exact thing. But one is removable and the other one is removable, but you have to open up the console, I guess.
No, you just take off the cover. That's all you do.
So they are the same thing.
They're literally the same thing.
Okay.
So if you buy the digital one, you have a different cover than the one that comes with the disc one. But if you buy the disc separately, the disc drive separately, the disc drive one, or the disc drive will come with the correct cover that you now need to put on your formerly digital console, which is now a disc console, to make it the same as buying the disc console.
Would there be an easy way to get both covers? Just for...
If you wanted both covers for sake of completion, you should buy the digital one and then buy the disc drive separately, so that way you still have both covers.
Okay.
And you have the disc drive, but you'd be paying an extra $20 or $30.
That's why the price hike.
Probably, yeah. They're charging because you're getting an extra cover.
Yeah.
So I guess if you want both, that would be the way to go.
I read they're also charging more for the stand. Vertical stand.
Yeah, so this model will only come with a horizontal stand, and the vertical stand will be sold separately. I think for like $20 for a piece of plastic.
I saw £20. I don't know if it's going to be $20, but that translates more to like $25.
The PlayStation products are all more expensive in the UK and in Europe.
Okay.
Like, for whatever reason,
they keep it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because when they get imported, they're like imported into the States first and then imported into Europe or something. But the people in the US pay far less for PlayStation products, games, consoles, accessories than people in Europe and the UK do.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah, it does.
But
It's the way it is, unfortunately.
I guess they figure there's more of an uproar here if they raise prices than there is over there. For some, like they're just used to it over there.
They're just more.
I swear,
They're calmer and
whenever they
more
announce
passive.
price hikes and stuff, it's always in Europe. Like there's rarely a price hike here.
Maybe they have a study that they've conducted that just shows that Europeans are more passive than Americans.
They're just more agreeable. They're not like gonna throw Molotov cocktails at your
right.
house for charging $10 more.
Right. All right, break time.
Yeah, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment.
So, otherwise in the news, Nintendo filed a patent on October 26th, which was discovered over the weekend, over a device that has two screens, and there's a lot of speculation about it.
So yeah, the patent isn't actually a patent yet. It's something that's like a work in progress. They haven't submitted it. I'm not totally sure why they need to start publicly uploading it, but I had read that it's not actually like filed quite yet.
Gotcha.
But it is something they're seemingly working on. Now it looks, there's some images on this website where they've submitted diagrams, drawings,
sketches,
and it looks like a Switch, but then it folds up and opens into like a clamshell design,
reminiscent, as if to kind of signify like two separate devices that go together and connect.
Yeah, I mean, when you open it up, it looks like it could be like a DS or a 3DS, but then the description of the device implies that it can be separated.
Right.
Meaning that you could then hand the other screen to
someone else. Fully separate them into two separate devices. And it also talks about multiple states that the devices can be in. Back to back, front to back, and separated or something.
So I mean, you could, maybe similar to the Vita, have like the back be sort of like a touch screen thing where you're interacting.
It does talk about the back of it being something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not a third screen, but who knows?
Yeah, it was the description that it gives of the device is a little confusing to read because it's very technical.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about, if this is the Nintendo Switch 2,
right?
Maybe I mean, this could be a megaton, or it could mean absolutely nothing.
Right. Patents get filed all the time that amount to nothing, and concepts are drawn up that amount to nothing all the time as well. Yeah. Now I can see this being something with the Switch 2. It follows suit, for me, in my mind, with Nintendo's kind of approach in multiple ways. One, it takes what the Switch already has and adds to it, kind of like what they were trying to do with the Wii versus the Wii U.
Right.
It also opens the door, and I know how they're thinking about this, to the Virtual Console supporting DS and 3DS.
Yeah. I mean, I would if this is the approach Nintendo is going with out of the gate for the Switch's successor, personally, I think they've lost their damn minds.
Yeah.
I think if they think they're going to market this as the Switch's successor, they're going to have a hard time convincing people. First of all, the price, can you imagine what the price would be for essentially two consoles in one?
I don't know. They somehow seem to make that work.
I mean, we're already expecting a Switch that costs, $399, or a Switch successor that costs $100 more than the base Switch model does right now, I think.
Sure.
We're probably looking at a $400 console next year.
It probably would
if it has one screen.
Right. I don't see them going above 500.
Maybe they have a premium model of some kind, or they have a cheaper digital model and then a more expensive model that can do physical game cards. Maybe that's the strategy they go with. Xbox and Sony have also done that this generation, so maybe
all of these concept drawings seem to display a cartridge slot on the top of it or the bottom.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know that they're going to go the digital physical versions route.
Right. I mean, when these drawings get filed and distributed, the patent for the Switch was this like ovular shaped
Right.
device.
Yeah. It
And it
never
ended up
ends up
looking
yeah,
nothing
never
like it.
never ends up
So
that
I
way.
don't know that we can look at these drawings definitively. I mean, this could just be the the physical model rather than the digital only model.
Right.
You know, Sony, when they launched the PlayStation 5, they had said, "Hey, look, for 399, you can get a powerful console."
Right.
Whereas Xbox, they have two consoles. They have their disc console, the Series X, and then they have their digital console, the Series S.
Mm-hmm.
The Series S is significantly less powerful than the Series X, whereas the two PlayStation models were identical in power to each other.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think if Nintendo were to do a digital one and like a one that didn't take cartridges and one that did, I don't think they would be different in terms of raw power. I think it would be more of the Sony approach where they just say, "Hey, you can get it for 399, or if you want, the one that takes cartridges, it's $50 more, or $100 more, or something like that."
Yeah. It's really hard to take anything away from preliminary sketches and
Now,
concepts.
I think this could work if it's an optional accessory to the next Switch, the next Nintendo successor.
Sure.
Like I could see it being sold and it just like detaches via some, points and magnets and stuff.
So I'm curious if it's sold like this. Let's say a new console comes out, they announced it's a more powerful Switch plus this other device.
Right.
How do you okay, you say they're out of their minds. How does that not work?
I just don't think that they're going to convince the general public to carry something like that around. Like I think you have to market that. It's a very Nintendo thing to do.
Oh yeah.
And me personally, I'm there for it on day one. But I want to see Nintendo continue to succeed
Right.
and see success. And I feel like something like this would be an obstacle to that, to the success they're seeing now continuing.
Because you're assuming that it's going to be bulky, or
I'm, I just really don't see people gravitating to. I mean, it's got to be heavier than it would be if it was just one device.
It depends how they design it.
I mean, how do you think? What do you think it's going to stream?
No.
To like an empty shell
no,
to the other console?
of course not. But they could design the main Switch and then this other screen.
I mean, how does a cartridge-based game even work on something you can detach? I would almost have to download the game in two places.
I honestly have no idea. But the DS worked commercially,
right,
so
but it wasn't detachable.
It wasn't detachable.
That's the part that's like, how do... So, I mean, okay, let's say they go for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
A clever name that I saw someone pitch online was the Nintendo Split.
Right. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, I think if this is how they're going, that's what they should. It calls back to the Switch with a similar short S word that has some of the same sounds in it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. I just think
I'm trying to understand your.
I just think they're asking a lot of the consumer.
Okay.
Put yourself in the mind of an average person. Remember what happened with the Wii and the Wii U.
Right.
So wait, it's an accessory for my Switch?
Right. Yeah, okay, so you're seeing a repeat of the Wii U situation.
I'm seeing this being very confusing to the general public.
Right.
People who aren't tuned in.
So that's an issue with marketing, I think, more than hardware.
I agree, but I do think hardware does bear some responsibility still. Like they're designing something that is explicitly hard to market. Or harder to market. More challenging to market.
I guess so. I mean, that only is gonna be, that only speaks to like how well their marketing team is, handles it.
I mean,
It could be
the
marketed really
Switch
well.
has been marketed incredibly well
Right.
because it's an easy concept to sell. The
Right.
concept is drop it in a dock,
Okay.
pull it out, and play it.
So is it the complexity of the thing that is your
I
problem?
think so, and I mean that's part of it. I think one, it's weird, and
Sure.
weird is always a little harder to sell.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and I think it's got to raise the price. There's no way it doesn't.
No, of course.
Got to make it bulkier. It's got to make it heavier. Now, I mean, we are seeing a trend with phones that they're not super widely adopted, but we're seeing these folding phones now, right?
Oh yeah, the Z Fold and all that.
I mean, Google's got one. Microsoft has a foldable Android phone. They're becoming more prolific, or not prolific, but we're seeing more and more of them out there. And I think this is an interesting way to sort of incorporate a folding thing. And you're right. When it comes to virtual console, how else can you release like DS games
Mm-hmm.
and 3DS games, virtual console, without having two screens? I mean, sure, you could put two screens side by side to each other
Yeah.
on like a widescreen setup, but I just don't think you're getting the same experience. That's why I think if something like this were to exist, I think it would have to be as an accessory, not something you're
See,
forcing everyone to buy.
what's different for me between this and the Wii U, and I do understand your fear about the Wii U syndrome
Yeah,
affecting this, is that it's detachable, but it's also attachable, and it can be sold as an attached. All the imagery, all the branding, everything can show it as an attached console,
sure.
and that is very sellable. It's as sellable as the DS.
All right, so then consider this then. You're right. You're right there. If it's already attached, it makes more sense. I still think in the marketing you're going to see, them showcasing the
Right.
detachable functionality, which is where the confusion will come
But
from.
if you showcase and market that first concept, the attached form,
Yeah.
you can then say it also does this, and
Yeah.
then show that, and then everyone goes, "Whoa, wow,"
Yeah. Okay, but now everyone developing games
Right.
is now developing
That's
a
always going to be,
unique version of this
that's
new Nintendo split,
yeah. So that's always going to be, anytime a console holder wants to do something like this, that's always going to become a problem.
It's immediately every one of these third party publishers is like, ugh.
Yeah. Now we have to and indie developers
And
too.
Nintendo will have these guidelines where you have to take
Yeah.
advantage of the new functionality,
And-
both screens.
Yeah,
And so developers will just be like, forget it.
it has to be called this, and this device has to be called this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that.
I think it's a mistake if they launch a detachable console
Mhm.
out of the gate. Now, I think if they say, "Hey, everyone, virtual console games are coming to the new Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever it's called. We're gonna have this $100 optional accessory that lets you add a second screen to your Switch so you can play these games." And then there will also be some first-party Nintendo games that can use extra functionality. I'm reminded of Sly Cooper that came out for PS3 and Vita. I think it was Thieves in Time.
Yep.
The fourth Sly
That's
Cooper.
the third one.
No, fourth Sly Cooper game. It wasn't made by Sucker Punch. It was made by Sanzaru.
Okay.
They had this really cool functionality where you could sync your Vita with your PS3, and then you could like put it on like a little, not like a dock, but just like a little stand. So you could have your TV in front of you, and then centered right below your TV, you could have your Vita, and it kind of gave you this like X-ray vision where you could like see through buildings. So you would just like glance down at your Vita, and you could see like, oh, there's a treasure chest, or there's an enemy behind there, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I could see maybe a creative use of like using the second screen in a similar way for like party games where like something some players can see but other players can't see, and maybe the player with the second screen has to tell the person with the first screen where to look because they're seeing something that maybe they're not seeing.
This, and that's how Nintendo thinks about their first party games. We've talked about this privately
Yeah.
a lot since high school.
Yeah.
Nintendo makes their hardware for them,
They do now, and uh, it sometimes it pays off for them.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned this previously. Nintendo has a thing where they have these
Yeah.
ups and downs, where they have a really big successful thing,
Yeah.
and then they do something really weird and out there, and then nobody adopts it.
Right, and we're due for a flop console if we follow that trend.
Which I don't want to see. I mean, there's a part of me that thinks this would be way more interesting than just making a Switch 2.
Sure.
So as like just
Right, as a Nintendo fan who understands Nintendo and their approach.
that excites me.
Right.
And I would be there on day one for it.
Right.
But as someone who also wants to see Nintendo succeed and have all the massive third party support that they continue to have right now,
Right.
I think it would be the wrong move.
Okay, so if we think about this thing as basically a high-powered DS that can be separated.
Uh-huh.
We didn't understand the Switch until we held it. We thought Nintendo was out of their mind pretty much until we got to hold the thing. And this can easily
I mean, I didn't feel that way about the Switch.
No, I'm just people in general. We're talking about
I mean, I
the
feel like
market.
the Wii U was the one that was always puzzling to people.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo made some good software that made a case for it.
Right.
But there was zero third party adoption.
Right.
There were some people who tried at the beginning,
Yeah.
bought into what Nintendo was selling, but their games didn't do very well. The Wii U immediately sold 1 million consoles when it launched, and then
Stopped.
it just stagnated immediately. Like it just a little trick, like, oh, here's 10,000 new consoles this week, and that doesn't work.
Right.
I mean, Nintendo, can they afford a flop?
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I don't think they should, though.
no, of course not. No one should. But
just because they want to be in, yeah, I don't know. I
don't know. I don't know if they were to sell this thing as an attached console, I could see it working because people took on to the detachable controllers for the Switch,
right,
and they understood it.
Right.
That's weird. That was weird. No one had done that before.
Well,
We're
I'm sure
talking
someone
about
probably did it, but anybody knows.
I mean, sure, the Intellivision had their
That's
controls,
true.
but that's
yeah, I know what you mean.
a little different. If it's a DS that slides apart, that's not that far out there from what the Switch was. And I don't know. It has to be marketed properly.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. It has to, the idea has to be communicated properly.
I'm on team. This is just Nintendo filing a patent or, working on a patent.
Yeah.
That maybe one day might be something relevant to what they want to create, and they'll already have that patent ready to go, and no one can claim that they did it first.
Right. Some companies, when they have an idea that they think is innovative, they just file a patent.
Right.
And
it's got some names attached to it, there's 3 or 4 names attached to it who are the people who created it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look on the web page.
Yeah.
And I went and looked into them, and they're like Nintendo's hardware people.
Yeah.
So I would. My jaw will hit the floor next year if this is what they pitch to the public. I think.
Yeah, but what you see in your head isn't necessarily what, how they're gonna sell it or what it's gonna be.
Right. I mean, based on what little we were able to glean so far, I think it would be the wrong move for them.
Yeah.
It's the ambitious move. It's not the safe move, but I truly do think people have spoken. They want another Switch. They want it to be more powerful. For once, Nintendo.
Yeah.
You should probably give this massive audience you've created exactly what they want.
Right. It might be that too. Just with a detachable screen. that may or may not be used by
Right.
all the games.
I mean, I just think, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
yeah. I mean, this will be crazy, man. When they show this thing off, if this is what happens, I mean, the world is going to lose. The video game world is going to lose their mind
Yeah, if this ends up being it.
if this ends up being it. So that's just added a new wrinkle into the Nintendo Switch successor story.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is going to be in the back of everyone's mind, and it just the anticipation is just growing even stronger.
At the end of the day, no one knows what they're doing. At the end of the day, this is just a document that came out that we don't know.
Could mean everything.
It
Could mean nothing.
Could mean nothing at all.
Yeah.
So, aside from that, we got some news out of PlayStation. The head of international production.
Internal production.
I'm sorry. I misspoke. Internal production, Connie Booth, has finally, after a very long
You're
stay.
making it sound like she should have left a long time ago.
After a long stay at PlayStation, she has departed the company.
Under, circumstances that aren't clear to the public.
We don't.
Whether it's amicable.
She hasn't spoken.
No.
We don't know what's going on.
So, Connie Booth has been with Sony since 1989. But in 1995, she moved over to the games division. And this would be a couple years before PlayStation even launched. But she worked closely with the Crash Bandicoot team originally to help get that game to market.
Right.
From then, she would go on to help nurture talent and produce games at studios that made games like Siphon Filter, SOCOM, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Infamous, Resistance: Fall of Man, Uncharted, The Last of Us, Days Gone, God of War, and Marvel Spider-Man. So she's been probably one of the handful of people who has been there since day zero.
Right.
On PlayStation. And from what I've seen, she has so many credits in so many games for special thanks. Like people who've worked in the Sony ecosystem for a long time know Connie really well. Kojima even scanned her in his crazy photo realism scanning thing that he has in his studio and made her an NPC in Death Stranding.
Yeah.
So she's been really close with everyone, all the studios, for a really long time. People are like lamenting her loss. I even saw people saying that Microsoft or Phil Spencer at Microsoft should hire her to run Blizzard, since Bobby is gonna
she would be a good candidate.
But she likely probably has
another job,
a non-compete,
or that. Yeah.
I mean, no doubt someone in her position probably.
Oh, she's getting scouted right away.
Scouted, and she's probably happy to take a year off, if not longer.
No doubt.
She probably got a nice, retirement package. But I mean, the circumstances behind her departure were first reported by David Jaffe, or Jaff. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
I think it's Jaffe.
Jaffe. Who was one of PlayStation's early, big name game creators behind Twisted Metal, and he created the first God of War game.
Yeah, I didn't even know he created Twisted Metal, but he's well known for God of War.
Yeah, he made. Do you remember at PlayStation Experience? There was one year they were drawn together? It was drawn to death or something like that. It was this
Drawn to Life?
No. It was this it looked like pencil and paper, like line paper.
Yeah, Drawn to Life. It was like line paper, and there was illustrations, and they came to life, and there was had like skull.
This was like a shooter game where you were like killing each other, but you look like they were made out of paper. I think it's called Drawn to Death. I'm probably getting it wrong though. But yeah, he was there promoting the game at PlayStation. That's, I think, the last time he tried to make a new game, and I think it was a free-to-play game, and it never caught on. So he's like shifted to like
That was his own team, right? That made that game.
He had already, he wasn't particularly associated with Sony at that point anymore.
I think you're right. Is Drawn to Death.
Yeah. But he's left game design altogether. He now has like a weekly YouTube show, or he streams and he talks industry. He was the first person who publicly said something about this, and then it was further dug into by Steven Toledo, who was able to get some answers out of Sony. And Sony had something nice to say about Connie. Let me pull that up.
I had seen her name actually come across my screen on the partner development portal side of PlayStation before. Okay. Not like anything regarding me, but just newsletter type stuff.
So this is what Sony had to say when asked about Connie Booth. They said, for over 30 years, Connie Booth was an integral part of Sony Interactive Entertainment, working with studios like Bend Studio, Insomniac Games, Sucker Punch, and Naughty Dog to produce some of PlayStation Studios' most beloved titles. She helped drive the success of PlayStation Studios and is experiencing... Well, they kind of phrase this a little weirdly. She helped drive the success PlayStation Studios is experiencing today, and her passion in fostering an environment where a team's creative vision could fully flourish has left a positive impact on many game developers. We're thankful for Connie's numerous contributions to the company and wish her the best in future endeavors. And it's also worth noting that in 2020, Connie was inducted into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame, which is an honor that's, normally set aside for
STEM and stuff like that.
No, they have a specific. The Interactive Arts and Sciences are mainly video games.
Okay.
But yeah, it's normally like Hideo Kojima has been.
Oh yeah.
You don't usually see a lot of these behind the scenes people get this kind of attention, but I guess the people involved just know how important she really was, and it shows that not all suits, not all producers, not all behind the scenes string pulling people are horrible.
No.
And not involved in the process.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. She is one rare example of someone who actually really did contribute a lot to video game history from a managerial position.
From it's just crazy. There's probably very few people left from as far back as she has been involved with the brand,
right?
And I gotta imagine if you're someone who's been there a long time, you probably knew her well, and it's got to be strange to see her go. Apparently Sony will not be hiring anyone new to take her role over. They're going to distribute her duties to various other executives.
Maybe that has something to do with her departure.
Yeah, I wonder if Sony's just trying to cut costs. She's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
She was president of this division.
Maybe they feel like that position doesn't need to exist.
And that's a crying shame, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine you give 30 years of yourself?
Right.
You're responsible for like a huge amount of success the company's seen, and they're just like, hey, Connie, you're too expensive.
Right.
See ya.
Yeah, she, I don't know.
A lot of times...
I was going to say real quick, these positions, like the one she had, they're constantly cycling through new people. You always see, especially like CEOs are the obvious example. Like every few years, someone new is taking that position. But, somehow she's stayed in that role. She's climbed the ladder.
She's climbed the ladder, exactly. But like her role, it's almost like she's always been doing the same thing, but they just gave her better titles and more benefits and money, I'm sure, over time. Well deserved. So it'll be interesting to see if she goes back to the industry. She's done. She's probably in her 50s if she's been with Sony since 1989.
Right. That's, I mean,
I mean, sure.
that's up in the air. She
Oh
could.
yeah, some people just love it.
Yeah.
And it's an the games industry. On paper, it's got to be exciting. It's got to be thrilling, and that's why I think it lures so many people to it. But the
Mhm.
realities of the
Right.
industry,
Yeah.
are
Totally different.
yeah,
Totally
it's
different.
not really a place you want to work,
No.
especially if you're like a low level employee.
Right. I think in the dream position in the industry, maybe, but
Right.
that's very few
And
people.
she probably had her dream job.
Right.
I mean, she probably got to do all kinds of amazing things, work with so many different teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to have been pretty damn special.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple stories about some justifiable player outrage going on. And we're going to talk Overwatch first, and I'm going to let Rick take lead on this.
Sure. So Overwatch, this is actually kind of old news. This really started October 2nd, I believe. But we've kicked this down the road a couple times, I think. Overwatch Season 7 came out, and, the Battle Pass for Season 7 has gotten some people really upset.
Well, let's tell the listeners about Overwatch a little bit. What's Overwatch?
So Overwatch is a Blizzard franchise that is sort of the hero shooter type multiplayer online.
Yeah, and Overwatch 2 is specifically free to play.
It is, yeah.
So you don't have to pay a cent to.
Which Overwatch 1 was not.
Right, at least initially. I'm trying to remember if Overwatch 1 and transitioned into a free to play game at some point.
So I'm going to point out from the get-go that neither Taylor nor myself are really fans of Overwatch or have played it or have any experience.
Personally,
I probably have played some demo somewhere at some convention.
Yeah, it's just not my style of game. I'm not really into the competitive,
Right.
player versus player stuff as much anymore. So that's 99% of what Overwatch is.
Right.
So it doesn't really appeal to me too much.
But for me, I really wanted to talk about this because it is pertaining to Blizzard and tangentially sort of related to the merger that we've been talking about ongoing. So I feel like this is a relevant thing. The Season 7 pass for Overwatch got a lot of people on Twitter and Reddit really mad in that it came out being $40, and locked behind that paywall is a character skin for Lilith Moira, the antagonist from Diablo 4.
Right.
Which is a really good looking skin. I saw pictures of it.
Yeah.
It is impressive. I can understand why it's coveted. The only way to get this skin is to pay, cash money. There is no gameplay path to getting it.
Do you earn it by purchasing into the Battle Pass? Is that how you get it?
I think you just get it with the pack.
Well, so what's interesting is that usually in these games you buy the Battle Pass,
right?
But you don't immediately get stuff.
The rewards and stuff you
have to earn it by playing the game. So
I didn't see a definitive answer to that question, but I
suspect it's got to be tied to the pass somehow.
Yeah.
And the pass is how much?
$40. $39.99.
So that's like the price of a game.
Right. A full-fledged title.
Yeah.
But no, Overwatch 2, this is not the first time that they have really upset their fan base. There have already been plenty of complaints and stuff like that in the past. Overwatch 2, like Taylor mentioned, is free to play, whereas Overwatch 1 initially was not. But Overwatch 2 came out free to play very much with the mindset of seemingly predatory monetization in mind. It prioritizes battle passes. It really sells hard. The battle passes, like you pretty much have to have the battle passes.
I mean, if you want to look cool while you're playing the game, that's what these games, how they're designed. It's a multiplayer game where you're playing with other players versus other players.
Yeah.
So when you jump into a match, you're seeing everybody you're playing with is dressed in some like cool
Right.
alternate costume, and the only way you get these alternate costumes is by paying for the most part. There may be
Right.
some ways to unlock certain cosmetics over time, saving up like whatever premium currency you can earn for free. But yeah, these free to play games,
Hmm.
especially something like Overwatch, where
Right.
all you're doing is looking at other players all the time,
Right.
is is designed to get you to want to spend money on
Right.
these optional cosmetic things.
Fortnite is another
Fortnite's
example.
the same
Right.
exact thing.
And but in your experience with these kind of games, however limited it may be, do you would you think that the battle passes have like include access to gameplay like segments, or if it's just like a
Hmm.
bunch of
I
items and
think I think Blizzard's plan or with Overwatch 2 is anything that's like gameplay, every player will have access to it at no cost.
okay,
So really they're
your
targeting
battle pass is just a pack of items and cosmetics that you have to buy to
exactly.
own.
Yeah. So, it is totally optional. You're not pressured into doing it. But, players, especially young people and
Hmm.
people who are susceptible to like, opening their wallets
Right,
constantly,
right.
they're going to feel pressure to to want to buy the stuff constantly.
Right,
And I
right.
don't know how long the seasons
You're
last.
gonna look out of date as a player if you
Yeah.
don't have the latest and
Yeah.
greatest
Now, some
cosmetics.
people that doesn't matter to them,
Right.
and they'll never be bothered by it, and they'll play the game for free, and they'll get a ton of value out of it.
Hmm.
But for every one of those players, there's probably two players
Right.
that is spending
Need
on
to have it.
everything.
They
Yeah, I
gotta
gotta
have
have
that.
every battle pass for every season.
And I did look at the list of everything that comes with the battle pass. There's a bunch of in-game items and loot and
Yeah.
healing items, etc. that do come. It's not just one cosmetic skin for $40. It's a list of stuff that you get. Everything else doesn't mean much to me as a non-player of
Right.
Overwatch, but I do understand the fervor about the skin, and I think really what gets people is even though this kind of thing has been historically acceptable to a degree with free to play games, this is not typical of how Overwatch has had always been, especially in Overwatch One. Every cosmetic in Overwatch One had a gameplay path to getting it. Um, that would take a lot of time when you could just buy it, but that option existed.
Right. If you wanted a particular cosmetic, you could earn it just by playing the game.
Right.
You didn't have to spend money.
This is the first time, from my understanding, that Overwatch has anything cosmetic related behind the paywalls
Right.
exclusively.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
they Overwatch 2 launched recently and Diablo 4 launched recently, and Diablo 4 also has a battle pass that's seemingly very similar to what Overwatch is offering.
mhm.
And it's just full of all this cosmetic like gold and like things like that, like things that you could totally earn. They don't really give you a significant gameplay advantage or anything.
Mhm.
Um, uh, the but yeah, they make you look cool,
Right.
and I don't know. For me, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for a game like Diablo, personally,
Right.
because the character is so small on the screen. You're looking at like everything going on around you and not at your character so much.
Mhm.
So I don't really see. I bet you it's not working out for them as well as it works out for them in
For
something like
Overwatch.
Overwatch
Right.
2, where your like characters like really in your face all the time.
Right. And characters are just more prominent on screen.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. The character design of the Overwatch characters is incredible. It's like a looks like some crazy Pixar game come
Right.
to life.
Right.
They all look fantastic. The costumes are awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, when the costumes are behind paywalls, or even when a single costume costs $10-$20, that's insane.
Mhm.
That's insane
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either.
But kids are growing up more and more games. If I'm a kid now, all the big games I'm playing have all these microtransactions and these battle passes,
Right.
and all of this stuff are all around me. And I don't know, man. Like
Yeah, it's
that's just gonna be the norm for them.
yeah. So what was completionism and stuff in games to us is bankruptcy to
Yeah.
kids
Used to be
today.
you bought a $60 game, and if you wanted to do everything in it, you didn't have to spend another penny.
Right,
And now you buy a free game, but if you want to do everything in it, you're spending thousands and thousands of
right.
dollars. Or you
Yeah,
want to collect all the optional cosmetic stuff. It's just ridiculous.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I prefer that if a game is free to play, that the microtransactions are cosmetic,
mhm.
because I don't think players should be able to buy a gameplay advantage over
Right.
other
The
players.
play to win type
Yeah,
stuff.
which we don't see nearly as much anymore.
No, I mean you could argue that some of the stuff included in this season 7 battle pass does include quote unquote pay to win. I mean it's healing items and stuff
Well,
like that.
I'm not really. I don't think we should speak definitively on that.
No, I mean we don't
Yeah,
know what the
because I
stuff
don't know what that
is and
actually
how it
means.
applies to gameplay.
Because my understanding is
Um,
that it's a very balanced competitive game,
yeah,
so I don't actually see them
doing
selling
that.
anything that would give a
I
real
don't
gameplay
know
advantage.
myself.
Maybe it's a healing item for like a PvE
Getting
mode or
back
something.
though to how Overwatch has already upset players, when Overwatch 2 came out, they completely replaced Overwatch 1 and with this, it's basically just a version 2. It's not even really a sequel when you think about what kind of gameplay it includes.
Yeah,
They did away with hero missions, which were present in Overwatch 1 as part of the PvE content, um, promising a bigger PvE experience, I understand,
yeah,
but taking away hero missions, which I guess were something that was beloved
yeah.
by players.
I mean, and they ended up. They went back on their commitment to provide big PvE content,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're no longer doing that. So now it's just bad news. You remove the old game when the new game launches,
Right.
and I believe player purchases did carry over from the first game, but they did change how the game played a little bit. I believe they reduced the number of players on like a team.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that means like some of these professional esports team had to like cut people
Right.
from their roster because like, oh, instead of it being 5v5, now it's 4v4, or instead of 4v4 it's
Right.
3v3.
Yeah. And
So
people have to like adapt to
yeah.
what the game designers decide or publisher
And
decide.
shortly before Overwatch 2 launched, they lost their lead game designer, their director of the game, Jeff Kaplan. He left Blizzard and hasn't been seen since.
Yeah.
And he was a beloved figure in the Blizzard community. He was around since like like World of Warcraft. That's where he got his start.
So yeah, he was old school Blizzard.
Oh yeah, like he was working on the game before like it even went public.
Mm-hmm.
So and he left to work on Project Titan, which would then become Overwatch.
Right.
And Titan was originally an MMO, like a PvE MMO, but
Mm-hmm.
it got repurposed into Overwatch. And
Maybe a lot of this stuff having to do with Overwatch 2 is
I
related to.
think part of his departure was maybe caused by maybe he saw where the company was like, no, we're not doing what you said you were going to do. So
Mhm.
maybe he was like, I see this train wreck coming. I'm going to
Yeah.
get out of here.
Or, with him missing, they really didn't know.
They messed it up.
Yeah, how to
They're like,
take it.
yeah.
So, like I said, Overwatch 1 always allowed gameplay paths to cosmetic rewards. Um, but Overwatch 2 replaced Overwatch 1 with, I think I mentioned this already, just not enough game content to justify it as a
Right.
sequel.
It's players. They lost a complete product and gained an inferior product.
Right, basically, which promised to be a superior product.
Yeah, and they have not delivered on that promise. Maybe they'll get there,
Mm-hmm.
but as of right now, the game's not in a super great place.
Right.
It's nowhere near the highs that the game was at with the original Overwatch. I mean, the original Overwatch won like Game of the Year
Mm-hmm.
at the Game Awards. I can't remember what year it was, 2015, 16, something
Right.
like that.
Well, that's when it was a premium game, and
Right.
felt like a
Now, when it was a
premium.
premium game, I do believe it did have cosmetic, purchases and
Microtransactions.
stuff.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
did, but like I said, it provided a gameplay
right.
path to them.
Yeah,
They didn't lock
but
stuff
I
behind
guess
paywalls.
because it's a free to play game, they feel like they
They
don't have to
right
keep that commitment any
that's
longer.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. And the question I'd like to pose in all of this is really like, how does this behavior from Blizzard maybe relate even tangentially to the merger with Activision? And can we expect to see any changes in this behavior from Blizzard? I'll extend that to also include Diablo 4 and the way that they're going with the microtransactions monetization there. Now that Microsoft owns Blizzard, do you think this will be different? Do you think it'll stay the same? Do you think it'll
Um,
get better or worse?
I don't think Microsoft will care, or Xbox will care unless it becomes like financially non-viable.
Right. If it
You
affects
know,
the bottom line in a
then I
significant way.
think, they would, try to pivot the game somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's still generating revenue, a good amount of revenue, a justifiable amount to like continue the game's existence, I don't think Phil Spencer at Microsoft will tell them to do anything
No,
different.
I don't even think
Um,
Phil Spencer.
if the game is in a bad place, I would guess that the game designers, the people in charge of
I'm
Overwatch,
not just talking about Overwatch, though. I'm talking about just Blizzard's
right?
directive to monetize their games
I
this way.
mean, that's just unfortunate. I don't think that's changing. Microsoft does that in their own games,
Right.
so I don't think that's going to change at all.
Could it maybe multiply and get worse, do you think?
I mean, Microsoft just spent 60 some $billion. I definitely think it could get worse. They're going
Yeah.
to want to recoup
Oh, yeah.
costs.
Oh, yeah.
I
All
mean,
right.
it's an investment,
Yeah.
that purchase. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's going to take years before they
They
break
recoup the
even.
money they spent on buying
Yeah,
Activision Blizzard. Yeah.
but they're looking at it for the long
What
haul
was
for
the
sure.
sale number again on that? The merger? Do you know?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think it was 60 some $billion.
Yeah, something that sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, like 68 or 69.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So we got one more story, and this is kind of themed nicely. This is just a day after Halloween that we're talking about it,
Yep.
but similar fashion to what we just talked about. Mortal Kombat 1, which is the newest Mortal Kombat game,
Yes.
not the oldest Mortal Kombat
Because
game.
they want to be unique. They think this is, I don't know.
Personally, I think the name is clever. I think, what game has ever put the number 1 in their title before?
Sure, I understand why they did it.
Yeah, and it does make sense from like a story, what they're doing with the story.
Right.
But anyways, we're not talking about the title Mortal Kombat 1. We're talking about what they did recently. So in Mortal Kombat, we should clarify, you can have these really brutal finishing moves.
Right.
That
Fatalities.
are known as fatalities, and they're super gory. They're over the top.
Right. They're match finishers.
Yeah.
And they've been the signature of Mortal Kombat, like the single biggest signature aspect of the game.
Sets them apart from everyone
since
else.
the beginning, since the very first Mortal Kombat in, I believe, 1991.
Is these fatalities. So Mortal Kombat is a $70 game.
Mm-hmm.
And they are asking players to spend $12 on a new fatality animation.
Yes.
Specifically themed around Halloween. We'll post a link to the video so you can watch the fatality for yourself on the blog. But needless to say, it involves a pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern.
Right.
And it's $12, and it's only available for a limited time, and players are livid. We're talking about a game. Not only did it have a $70 base version, there was also like a $100 version.
I think it was 120.
120 for like the premium version that comes with like costumes and extra, junk.
Right.
That is just, pay 50 extra dollars to get like a battle pass. And
I don't know if because usually what they do is they did this with 11. You could buy the base game and then buy the deluxe pack to turn it into a deluxe.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. I'm sure that's an option.
Right.
But this game, like a lot of other fighting games now, they have all these optional purchases for outfits
Hmm.
and various cosmetics. But this is the first time they've ever made one of these cosmetics limited time availability, which induces that FOMO
Right.
in the players.
Right.
So you got the two players that are like, "Oh my god, I have to buy it because then it's gone
Right.
forever."
Right.
And then you got the people who are really upset that it's only available for a limited time,
Hmm.
and that
You have to pay for it.
$12 for an animation.
Yeah.
Like I could understand $1.
I mean, in a fighting game, it is akin to like an item or something. Not an item, but like an unlockable or something like that in like an RPG or something.
Right.
You could compare it that
like
way.
this is something that you just should be given out to the players who
Right.
are playing. Like log in during Halloween and get this bonus fatality. It's not
Yeah.
$12. We're talking about like a seventh of the value, or like a sixth of the value of this game
Right.
is what they're asking for it. So at Christmas time, you don't think there's going to be a Christmas tree fatality?
Right.
You know there's going to be one.
I mean, we'll see.
I mean,
They've gotten pretty.
these things have probably already been made, and like they're scheduled to go out for the
Right.
rest
Oh
of the
yeah.
year.
Oh yeah. No, no doubt. I get your point. I don't know about Christmas. NetherRealm seems to have gone really politically correct. I don't think they're going to do that, but they might do that for, you know,
Kwanzaa,
Kwanzaa. I don't know. I don't know what.
Hanukkah,
I don't know.
Festivus.
Oktoberfest. That'd
Well,
be
they
cool.
just missed that.
They missed that. Yeah.
Smash someone's head between two steins of beer.
Uppercut him into like some vat.
Yeah.
You know, or he gets spit out with the yeast or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like melted. Yeah,
Um,
I mean that would be cool, but $12 for that?
Yeah, right.
Like I'll just watch it on YouTube.
So I mean, okay, you can do the FOMO thing. That makes sense. Pokemon does it with mystery gifts and that kind of thing. Like it goes
yeah.
away real quick.
FOMO's all over the place
But
in the games
it's-
industry.
You know, those are free. They're not $12.
Right.
If you're going to charge for it, you need to make it at least. I mean, you're already price gouging people. That's a given. But you need to at least make that available with, you know, the rest of the DLC, you know, for the life of the.
Right. If you bought the deluxe edition, you should just have that.
Right. Or at least have a code to redeem it or something like that when it's available.
No, if you buy the deluxe edition of it, the ultimate whatever edition of the game,
Right.
anything extra they release for the rest of the game's life, unless there's like a big expansion or something,
Right.
for that first year of the game or whatever, you should have it all.
I agree.
If I paid $130 for the best version, the most complete version of the game, and now they're going to start asking me to pay $12
Right.
every other month
Right.
to have some kind of bonus fatality animation or
Mhm.
some skin, that's just absurd, man.
I'm not even going to get into my opinions about how the direction of how I think fatalities are going from the original games to what they look like now. I do think this fatality is pretty dumb, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm also a pretty calloused Mortal Kombat fan.
I didn't realize that. I
yeah.
thought you were still into it.
Oh no, I'm definitely into it and definitely passionate about it.
Yeah.
And you know, certain things that NetherRealm does really irk me.
Okay.
You know, as a result.
So like the fatality animations have gotten like
they're
insane.
Yeah, they're just way too over the top, unrelated. In this fatality, right? The player 1 smashes a pumpkin over player 2's head, and then a bunch of bugs or parasites or whatever eat his face off.
Right.
Then he kicks the pumpkin. Now all of a sudden there is a house behind the like that didn't happen in the older, you know, like just weird.
Right.
I don't know.
So like it's not just the kill, it's like then the set changes.
Yeah, like there's a house behind the fighters now. All of a
Right.
sudden, does this make sense? No, it doesn't.
Right, because then the pumpkin is like sitting on the
On a doorstep of the house,
house
that's in the
Some,
distance.
like, suburban, you know,
Right.
American.
It's supposed to look like, I don't know,
home.
Halloween or something.
Yeah.
You know, the movie. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm not going to get into it because it's a
Okay.
whole wormhole.
All right.
But there's a lot of things NetherRealm does, and they're more recent games that I'm just not in. I think it's just
It's interesting because a lot of the people who make Mortal Kombat are the same people who've been making Mortal
Ed
Kombat.
Boon is that's
If you look at a lot of the other senior talent on the game, they've been with NetherRealm. They've been with Mortal Kombat
the
for 10,
composer.
15,
I'm
20
forgetting
years.
his name now, but I think the composer is too. Um,
Um,
but yeah, I mean, yeah, they have a lot of different artists and stuff. I know I read something a while ago of how they were trying to get fatality ideas just from their regular staff. Like they wanted everyone to just submit
sure.
fatality ideas. So I know they do take design advice and stuff
Sure.
from their lower staff. So I know that there's more minds playing a part.
Right. I mean, when you've been making the game for as long as you have, the
Right.
people who've always been making the
Right,
fatalities
you need
probably
new
need some help.
ideas and new input and stuff like that. Some of the new fatalities just I don't like it when they don't make physical logical sense, and a lot of new fatalities kind of do that.
I can see that.
Anyways, so yeah, players are upset about this being a limited time paid piece of DLC.
It's not even DLC because you're not downloading anything. You're just unlocking it because you already downloaded
it's
it.
It's in the game already, and it's just being unlocked, which is just
because it's tied to your account essentially.
Right.
So
now people are likening this to a classic fatalities pack that came out with Mortal Kombat 9 on PS3 and Vita
years ago.
And that's a pack that I bought because I need to have those fatalities. Those were all the Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 fatalities for a whole set of characters.
But that was
actual DLC that you downloaded.
Right. And that was like a $10 purchase.
Right.
And you got a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was like 12 or 13 fatalities.
You didn't get one.
Right.
More.
Exactly. And they were classic again. This isn't some new thing, for Halloween.
I mean, personally, I still think it's kind of scummy.
Sure.
But
if it's something that the developer developed for the game after the fact, long after it's been released, I can understand charging,
Yeah, if it wasn't part of the original scope of the game,
right,
and it had to be created, separately,
right,
time and money went into making them,
exactly.
So it makes sense that they be paid for it. But I mean, again, $10 for a pack of a dozen fatalities.
But I think most importantly, not limited time.
Yeah,
it's there. You could download that right up until the end of PlayStation Network for PS3.
I mean, if PS3 store is still up, I mean,
you
it's
can download
hard
it now
to navigate, but you can still even download stuff on the PS3 today.
It's probably still there.
But I think that about wraps it up for this week. Any final thoughts?
Nope. We got a lot of stuff lined up for next episode.
I know. Our notes for episode 7 are nearly complete already, and there's still a whole week to go before we record. So
end transmission.